Hello everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my May wrap-up. I'm doing it a little bit differently this go around because I was inspired by Brit from Basically Brit and her vlog style wrap-ups. Now, if you're looking at this stack and going, Jen, that's a lot of books. Yes, it is. I read 17 books this month. Don't ask me how. I don't know how. So I'm gonna be kind of going around my day, having a work day, and I will also be sharing some of the books that I read this month. So, without further ado, let's get into this. What's going on? You gonna go inside? Okay, I'm coming. Let's go. I guess while she's out there, I'm gonna go grab my bullet journal and we can talk about the first few books that I read in May. All right, so book number one that I read in May was whilst I was doing my May bullet journal spread actually, and I was listening to Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This was the book club pick for this month for my friend's book club pick, and we all had very mixed feelings about this. None of us liked it, really. None of us really rated it above a 3. I rated it a 1.5 star, so it is my lowest rated book of the year. Really did not like it, but it did have some great conversation come out of it because all of us were like picking it apart. But I will say that I wish I had studied this at some point in my life because I think studying it would have made it not more valuable, but maybe a little bit more palatable. Is that the word? I don't know. If you don't know, this follows a teenage boy who at the beginning of this gets kicked out of his school, and so out of like fear and stuff, he decides to just go on a very, very depressed bender basically in New York City before he goes home, and he's obsessed with his hunting hat, and he is deeply, deeply depressed, and yeah, it's not fantastic by any means, but I know probably, oh, that lighting is wild. I know probably a lot of you did read this for high school, so you know what I mean. I did not have to read this for high school though. Thank God, I would have hated it in high school, as I do now. The next book that I read in the month of May was The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This has been on my TBR for a while, and I'm glad that I finally got it off and finished it and read it. It was a very good start to whatever this series is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a duology, a trilogy, or a series. Who knows? But it is a very solid beginning. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. So this is about Decca, who is 16 years old, and at the beginning of this, she's about to go through a blood ceremony that happens whenever girls turn 16. It like officially makes them become women, and it like marks them as pure and marriageable and all this. The beginning of it, during the ceremony, her village is attacked by these monsters, and she ends up calming the monsters and also being revealed to not be pure. She has golden blood, so she is considered half demon, I think is what if I remember correctly. And then she gets shipped off to be a warrior after being tortured and bled for her golden blood, which goes for a lot of money, by her village. So it was fine, it was fun, and it was a very solid YA read, and I highly recommend it. The next one that I read was Shipped, which was actually an audiobook off of Scribd. My friend and I decided to do like a random buddy read just in the middle of the week, and we both read it all in one fell swoop, and it was a really, really lovely romance novel that is compared to The Unhoneymooners and The Hating Game. I do believe those are the two comps, and I absolutely adored it. I gave it 4 stars. It was fantastic, so summery, so bright, and I now have a new favorite romantic hero, and Graham is so sweet. So it's basically a enemies to lovers kind of competition-y type of thing. 2 people are going up for the same promotion, and our main character has always kind of had this like animosity towards Graham because of a situation that happened happened during work where he ended up taking credit for her work that she put in. So she's kind of held this animosity for him, and then they're both up for a promotion, and they're part of this like crew company or whatever, and it's a social media promotion, or cruise company, not crew company, cruise company. And so to like try out for the job, both of them have to go on this cruise and come up with a some kind of social media presentation thing that will like help the company. On this cruise, of course, they fall in love and it's great. I enjoyed it so much. The banter in this book was next level. I loved it so much and I highly recommend it. So you guys should go check it out. Yeah, so those are the first 3 books that I read this month. I'm gonna let my dog in. She's having a great time, just like chilling in the sunshine. And I'm gonna go do a little bit more work and I will catch up with you guys to talk about the next books. Just in like a zone of like just having submitted a few things. I'm actually submitting a review for a book for our like one of our websites. We do blog reviews on it and all that kind of stuff. So because I do this, my boss had me actually film a like 2-minute video for that one as well to go along with it. So I'm excited to see how that goes over because I'm also in charge of like tracking analytics and stuff now. Like I've gotten a little bit of, not really a promotion, just like a title upgrade at work, which is so exciting. Life updates with Jenna. But okay, so the next few books that I read in the month of May, actually the next books that I'm going to talk about aren't actually like the next 4 books that I read in May, but I did read them all for a video in May. It was my reading books about books video where I read books that have the trope of either a specific book in it, or a bookish place like a library or a bookstore, and I ended up reading 4 for that video. So let's go over those. The first one that I read was The Bookshop of Yesterdays by Amy Meyerson. This one I did not really like, and I also did kind of a bad job of explaining why. Hey friends, I am currently editing this video that I literally just finished, and I got to this part talking about Amy Meyerson's book, and my audio is like corrupted or something for this, so I don't know why. I must have a ghost in my house because I've been having audio issues. It's like someone's brushing a finger over my microphone, and I don't know why, because I've filmed this video on my phone. My next video, which you guys are going to be seeing next week, I filmed it on my camera and it's the same thing, same kind of sound. But this one's much worse, like you can't even understand me. So Amy Meyerson's book. I did not like this book, as I said. I gave it 2.5 stars. I found the main character incredibly unlikable. She was so incredibly self-centered, and the stereotypical woman that is often seen in like women's literary fiction, especially with books published around this time, where they are unnecessarily self-hating and judgmental of other people, especially women. And also I said it in my video, she is that level of prudish that is stereotypical of like what a good woman should be, is disgusted when men talk about anything to do with sex, or like she's so uncomfortable about it, like to the level of like 11-year-old would be. Like me at 11, I was that level of uncomfortable of the topic of sex because I didn't understand it. So that really bothered me. Also, there's cheating in this, which I never mentioned anywhere, which really bothered me as well. And just the fact that she refused to really acknowledge anybody else's grief in this book, and she just had her agenda, and if it wasn't completed in her way, she got really mad and hated on everybody else. Like she was just irritated at her mom for not telling telling her anything, which it was entirely in her mom's prerogative to answer the questions if she wanted to, like her choice, right? And the daughter did not have the right to demand the answers in the way that she did. And she also does not have the right to go around believing that her grief was more valid than anybody else's when she didn't even know him for the past 16 years, and all these people that she's around knew him up until he'd passed away. And so I really hated that aspect of the book. She was absolutely atrocious of a character. The other people were good to be around. The story was okay, a little bit unbelievable at times, like the twist in the end I guessed really early on. As a person who is adopted, I really don't like the trope of when people find out things, spoilers if you care. I really don't like the trope of when somebody finds out that their real parents aren't their parents that they've had around forever, and then they go off on that like, you're not my real mom situation, and they get really angry about that. Like, I hate that trope so much because blood does not make family, okay? That is not how it works. So this book just really pissed me off, if you couldn't tell. Like, I'm this close to just like angry crying right now about it, and I read it weeks ago. I don't know what's wrong with me, but anyways, I just wanted to pop in and fix all that terrible audio for this part. It's only this part too. The ghost in my house hates me. So let's continue. Yeah, did not really like that one, as you can tell. But the next 3 books for that video went really well. So I read The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. This was gifted to me by Tor Books for a review, and it is actually released the day that I'm filming this. It's June 1st. It's released on June 1st. Go pick it up. It was very, very good. Such a unique voice and such a unique fantasy world. So this follows Ropa, who is a kind of a medium of sorts. She is able to speak with ghosts and see ghosts. She is a ghost talker. That's what they call her. That's what she calls herself in this book. And it is one kind of branch of magic in this world. It is an Edinburgh mixed with a like Zimbabwean magic, which is so cool. And in this, she's approached by a ghost who basically says like, hey, my son went missing right before I died. Can you please find him for me? Then she starts like seeing these really creepy effects on some kids who were taken and then found. They are left unable to speak, and it's like they've been drained of all of their youth, which is so creepy. And so she basically takes it upon herself to figure out what's happening, and it's so good. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. It was a super, super great start to the series, and I'm so excited to see where this goes next. Oh, also, the library aspect of this was so fun. It is a cult magical library. Like, you can go find like grimoires and stuff in this library, and it's like underneath a graveyard in Edinburgh. It's so cool. I really enjoyed it. Then the next book I read for that video was the first Books of Beginning book by John Stevens. It's called The Emerald Atlas. This is probably my new favorite middle grade, guys. It is so good. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. Fantastic read. I think it might even be one of my favorite reads of this month. It was so good. And this one follows 3 children, Kate, Michael, and Emma. They have been orphaned at the beginning of this book, and they've been shuttled around to a variety of orphanages for the past 10 years, and they are given like one last chance. They fail this chance and they get shipped off to yet another orphanage. But this orphanage is different because it's in a place where nobody really knows what it is. Like, on their way there, they're asking about it, and everyone's like, that's not a real place. What are you talking about? They get there. They are the only kids in the orphanage. And the whole like town that they're in is dead. Like, there's no trees, there's no life, there's no kids anymore. There's no kids at all except for them. And then they get caught up in this like time travel because they find an old atlas that basically takes them back in time, and they have to like decode this mystery of this place. And it's so good. You guys definitely need to pick it up. It reads a little bit older thematically and also prose wise, I think. It is a middle grade, but I do believe that anybody of any age can really enjoy this. I also believe that if you're looking for a book for your teenager that doesn't really have any romance or anything, this is probably a good bet. I loved it, and I cannot wait to read the 2nd and 3rd. I already own them, and they're on my list. And then the last book that I read for that video was The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and I absolutely adored this one as well. I ended up giving this one also 4.5 stars. It was beautiful. So this is a historical novel set in Barcelona after the end of the Second World War, and it follows a boy named Daniel from the age of 10 to about 18 afterwards. Like, it's his life. He is introduced to this cemetery of forgotten books by his father, and it's like this beautiful place where you get to pick a book, and it's like you save it from this place of forgotten books, and it's yours to cherish and protect forever. You're to protect the story. And he finds this book by Julian Caraz called The Shadow of the Wind, and that sets him off on a journey to figure out who Julian Carraz is, his life, and what happened to all his books, because Daniel might own the very last one in existence. Also, he's being like stalked by this man who's very terribly burned, who is burning all of Julian Carraz's books. So it was beautiful. And I annotated it as I went through. The writing in this is stunning, absolutely stunning. I fell in love with this book within the first 5 pages. It was so beautiful. And so that was those 4 books. So I'm gonna get back to work here on my end. I have a few other things to do, but I will catch up with you guys in a bit to talk about the next group of books. Hey friends, so it is a little bit later and I figured, why not come in and do another batch of these? Today's been going okay. I've officially submitted a review, as I said. I do have some tedious work to do after this. It's one of those like logging in data type of situations, but it has to be done, so I will do it eventually. All right, let's chat about the next books that I read. So the next book that I read was probably my favorite book of the month, and that is Actor Age Eve Brown. So if you guys didn't know, this is the 3rd book in the Brown Sisters series trilogy that Talia Hibbert has done. They're all standalone series standalone type of thing. This is the 3rd one and the last one with the Brown sisters, and it was so good. I read it basically all in one sitting until like 2 in the morning one day, and I had a great time reading this. I think this is so in the running for what my favorite of the 3. I do have to reread Chloe Brown to like cement it as my favorite, because Chloe Brown is my favorite. I gave this 5 stars, by the way. So this follows Eve Brown, the youngest Brown sister, who is kind of a hot mess. She's 26, still living with her parents, and can't really hold down a job for very long because she's indecisive and hasn't really found something that will stick. At the beginning of this, her parents cut her off from her trust fund and say that she has a year to find a job and stick with a job, and then she'll be reinstated if she does that. She just kind of goes on a drive after that to like heal her soul or something because she's sad, and she ends up at this little B&B in this little town, and she sees that they're hiring for a chef, and she just decides on a whim to go in. The interview is disastrous. She meets Jacob and his best friend, and I can't remember his best friend's name. I think it's like Mac or something. Mont. Interview, disastrous. Jacob hates Eve, and Eve kind of hates him too, and she's just like, whatever, I don't need this job, it's fine, whatever. And then she accidentally hits him with her car and gets roped into helping overnight keep the B&B okay, because Jacob has a concussion and needs to go to the emergency room to check out his broken arm and all this kind of stuff. And it leads on to Eve getting the job and helping Jacob around the inn and them falling in love, and it's so good. And it is autistic representation on both sides, and it is so sweet, and I loved it so much. And Talia Hibbert can really write a sex scene. Then I listened to Agatha Christie's The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which was a recommendation from my friend because I wanted to read more Agatha Christie, and I listened to this on audiobook, and it was very good. I did guess who the murderer was very quickly, but the story as a whole, very well crafted, and I really enjoyed it, even though I didn't know who the murderer was. It was still incredibly enjoyable, and I was like, the twists, the turns, it was very well done. Then I read the novella The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nhi Vo, and I enjoyed this. I listened to it on audio, which I think was a mistake because it is fairly fairy tale, high fantasy-esque, so you do need to like have your wits about you. So I do plan on rereading this one day physically. I gave this 3 stars. Because I read it on audio, I don't remember a lot about it, and that sucks, but it is about Rabbit, who is a handmaiden, and it's like an imperial China, and there's like mythological figures telling stories about it, like a past time, and very fairy tale-esque and twisty-turny, and it was beautifully written. So there is that. I also finished Persuasion by Jane Austen this month. This was a reread for me. I listened to it on audio, and because it was a reread, I didn't really love it a whole lot. It's my least favorite Jane Austen. I still loved it, obviously, because it's Jane Austen and she's brilliant. And this is her last completed work that she did before she passed away. But I gave this 4 stars. It is my least favorite Austen. It's still very, very good. So I'll talk about it one more because I'm here. I also read the final revival of Opal and Nev by Johnny Walton, I think is how you say her name. I wrote it a little bit loopy in my bullet journal. I can't really read it. This was a audiobook listen for me. It is a full cast interview style book, which is very similar to Daisy Jones and the Six because it follows Opal and Nev, two artists from the 70s. Opal is a black woman who is basically recruited by Nev, who's a white British guy, early on to sing with him, and it's like they're coming together and then the aftermath, which is great. And it is also a big story about the daughter of one of Opal's band members and lovers. Like it's like she's doing this interview, and so it's her story as well as Opal's story and Nev's story a little bit. And it was very good and it was very intriguing. And even though it was audio, every time I listened to it, I was so sucked into it, and these characters felt very, very real. And it's one of the Daisy Jones and the Six instances where I just wish they were real so I could listen to their music. It really just intertwines, because it's in the 70s, it's set in the 70s, it really intertwines the racial issues in the United States, and especially in the music scene. And later in the book, it has a scene in 2016, and it talks about the Trump election and all of the horrors that go along with that. And it was very, very good. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, and I would love to one day reread it physically so I could read it with my eyes. It was very good. I highly recommend it if you liked Daisy Jones and the Six. I mean, I highly recommend it anyways because it's fantastic. Also, the audiobook is very, very good because full cast. It was great. All right, friends, I think now, because it is almost 1, I think I'm gonna see what I'm gonna have for lunch and keep going with my day. Do you want to go for a walk? Wanna go? Let's go. Alright, just got back from that walk with Bella and I figured why not, because it is about 2 o'clock. I'm gonna do the last little batch of books here. So we're gonna find a place to put you so I can sit and chat. Alright, you get that in the background. She's just ridiculous. Anyways. Alright, so last I talked about was the final revival of Opal and Nev. We have a few books to talk about still. I can't believe I read 17 books this month. So the next book that I read was The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. I really liked this. If you guys saw, I did like 2 reading vlogs on it. It was featured in both weekends and all of my thoughts are in there. But I did enjoy this. It is most definitely not a thriller as it is marketed. It is marketed wrong, in my opinion. It is a contemporary book that follows Donis on her Ojibwe reservation, which is just outside Sault Ste. Marie in the States, not the Ontario one. And it follows her life, her experience of losing her best friend through a murder-suicide with a boyfriend of hers that was addicted to meth. It also follows an investigation into this meth ring that the FBI are in the reservation researching it undercover, and they bring Donis in to do the investigation as like a CI, I think that's what it is, confidential informant. So it follows that. It is a little bit suspenseful near the end, but most definitely is contemporary romance before anything else, in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. The culture was beautiful. The life and joy in this community was just incredible to see. I do also think that this was too long for what it is. It is long and slow to get through. I was listening to the audiobook, so I was powering through it. But even then, I felt like it was a slog to get through. I was cut off because my phone ran out of storage, so I don't remember where I was. But yeah, I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I enjoyed the life and joy around Donis. I did find the relationship in this problematic because the power dynamics in it, not good, not good. And I did like the ending quite a bit, the way that Donis handled that. So very good. But yes, that was great. The next one that I read and finished was The Emperor's Blades by Brian Staveley. Finally wrapped this one up. This one I gave 4 stars. It was a fantastic fantasy novel. I really enjoyed the 2 main points of views and the third kind of lesser point of view. So we follow a family of like the kids of a family, the kids of the emperor. The emperor is killed right at the beginning of this book. One of the sons is off at a monastery, does not know he is the future emperor, and one of the sons is off basically training to become this really cool assassin who like flies and fights on birds, called Ketrel. Very cool. And the daughter is still in the city where the assassination happened. So it's the culmination of their trials and they're figuring out like kind of what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And it's very good classic fantasy book. Next, I read To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This was a little novella that my friends have been trying to get me to read for a little while, and I do love Becky Chambers and I needed to read more of her, and I really liked this one. I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well. Very good, very solid, and just beautiful look at humanity in space. And then I read Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. This is a Malaysian urban fantasy that deals with ghosts and gods. So it follows our main character Jess, who is gay. We love to see it. Female romance in this. So it follows her moving back to Malaysia with her parents and her being possessed by her grandma because her grandma is like trying to finish something before she officially moves on, and it deals with a malignant god, and it's very good. I enjoyed it a lot, and I gave that one 3.5 stars as well. Lots of 3.5 stars this month. And last but not least, I read and finished the graphic novel Avatar: The Last Airbender: The Promise Part 2, which was fun. I love Avatar, so it's always a good vibe to be back in the world. It is part 2 of 3, and I currently just finished part 3, first day of June, so excited about that. But this one I give 3 stars because it's just a part of a whole. I think as a whole, the whole like trilogy of that gets probably a 3.5 star because it's quite good all put together. I enjoyed this new arc of the story, and it just continues the storyline after the show ends, which is amazing because I always want more Avatar content. So we've reached the end of this wrap up. I read 17 books in May. I also just want to share my graph that I made for my monthly books because I think it's kind of funny the way that May just kind of goes up exponentially. I'm excited to see how June goes with my reading, but as for now, I will catch you in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.